I've got to laugh at Ben Shapiro getting essentially wrecked by Andrew Neil of BBC. Andrew Neil is not a leftist. Andrew Neil is a conservative. But he's good at asking questions. He's a real journalist. Unlike a lot of the journalists, the journalists here in the United States. And Ben Shapiro later goes on to claim that, oh yes, he was wrecked by Andrew Neil. Oh, he needed to be more prepared. No amount of preparation would have helped you, Ben. You just need to stop treating people as if they're automatically on the left if they ask you difficult questions. Check this out.
I mean, haven't the Conservatives run out of ideas in America? All the new policies, the Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, the Green New Deal, they're all coming from the left, and they're popular.
Well, frankly, I'm confused by the idea that any of those are particularly new ideas. I mean, most of those ideas have been around since Franklin Delano Roosevelt at the very earliest.
Yes, those are all old ideas. Yes, $15 minimum wage and Medicare for all and the Green New Deal. Those are old ideas. They've been around for decades and decades. No.
Or at the very latest, rather, some of them go all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. But the idea that new ideas are absent in the Republican Party is obviously untrue. We have a very strong debate that goes on inside sort of the conservative halls of intelligentsia about what is the appropriate action to take with regard to the medical system. Should global warming be considered a real threat, or should global warming be considered something that technology will solve? And if so, what are the best aspects of solving that?
Yes, in those conservative halls of intelligentsia. Yeah, tell us all about these ideas. No, most of it's just about denying them being a problem in the first place, and most of you are just pushing the idea that, lower taxes and pick yourselves up by your bootstraps. That's your policy. And when it comes to the environment, it's just basically denying that it's a problem to begin with. You're not discussing any policies or anything to help any of these issues. You just want to stuff it under the carpet. Yeah, the halls of intelligentsia. Yeah, that's neat. That's very nice, Ben. That's very nice.
Now, there's a rich intellectual debate on the right about nationalism versus patriotism, for example, or populism versus free marketeerism.
Oh, there's this deep intellectual debate about that. Really? You mean all these Trump supporters who declare that nationalism really isn't a bad thing? Oh, it gets such a bad flack. How about Candace Owens?
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
You know? How about Trump himself? Trying to say that nationalism isn't a bad thing. Yes, all this deep intellectual debate. No, there's no deep intellectual debate about any of this shit. Sorry, Ben, no.
That debate is happening on the right to sort of suggest that the right in America is bereft of ideas, but the left is full of ideas. Number one, not all ideas are good ideas. I mean, AOC is pretty good evidence of that.
You're right that not all new ideas are good ideas. You're right. And sometimes we need to say, hey, no, these new ideas are crap. True. But to claim that conservatives or Republicans in the United States are all full of new ideas, what kind of drugs are you on?
I'm a big fan of some old ideas myself that I think are pretty good. But beyond that, I think that it is intellectual sneering of the highest order to suggest that only the left has new and decent ideas.
Well, maybe you could actually try to prove us wrong, Ben. All you've got are old ideas.
Some of the ideas that are popular in your side of politics, would seem to take us back to the Dark Ages, Georgia, new abortion laws, which you are much in favor of, that a woman who miscarries could get 30 years. A Georgian woman who travels to another state for an abortion procedure could get 10 years. These are extreme, hard policies.
Those are pretty extreme, and look how Ben responds to it.
Well, okay, a couple of things. One, I'm not sure. I mean, frankly, I don't know whether are you an objective journalist or are you an opinion journalist?
I'm a journalist that asks questions.
Okay, so you're a supposedly objective journalist calling policies with which you disagree barbaric and suggesting only one side of the political aisle has ideas. So I just want to point out that I wish you would at least be honest in your own biases.
Mr. Shapiro,
so
I know that broadcasting
in
America is now so polarized that on one program you only have the left and another one you just have the right. My job is to question those who have strong views and put an alternative to them. If you were an anti-abortion person, I would be putting pro-abortion questions to you. But you are
really would you call the pro-choice position?
So why don't you just answer my question,
sir? I'm happy to answer your question.
No, Ben, you're not happy to answer his question. You refuse to answer his question.
Please answer this one. Would you suggest that a late-term abortion is brutal?
I'm not taking a view on this issue. I'm asking you the questions.
Ben seems to forget that he is the one being interviewed, not the other way around.
Sir, you just suggested that the pro-life position is inherently brutal and terrible, so I'm asking you, as an objective journalist, would you ask the same question to a pro-choice advocate by calling their position brutal and horrible?
What I'm asking you is that why is it that a bill banning abortions after a woman has been pregnant for 6 weeks is not a return to the Dark Ages? What's your answer?
My answer is something called science. Human life exists at conception. It ought to be protected. Now, back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you, as a journalist, are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the Dark Ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? Is this so hard for you? Why can't you just be honest? Seriously, it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it.
Yep, being more prepared would have helped him. Yeah, he should have actually looked into the person who's interviewing him, instead of just assuming that anyone who asks him tough questions is a leftist. And what difference does it make if someone is a leftist? Why does it matter? Why not answer the fucking question? No, he can't do that. He has to do character assassination based on the political opinions that he assumes the other person has. Ben got his ass handed to him in this interview.
So let's move on. Would you vote for Mr. Trump? I think
it's pretty evident from your own questions exactly what you are, sir.
Trump?
Okay, let's jump forward a bit, because it's a 15-minute interview, and I don't feel like doing back and forths on the whole thing. All right, so let's just jump to the part where Ben Shapiro makes more of a fool of himself.
I guess
if you want to read, honestly, this is a giant waste of time in the sense that the entire interview is designed for you to shout slogans or old things that I've said at me. I don't see how this forwards the debate. You talk about undermining the public discourse. It seems to me that simply going through and finding lone things that sound bad out of context and then hitting people with them is a way for you to make a quick buck on BBC off the fact that I'm popular and no one has ever heard of you.
There are not many bucks to be made on the BBC, unlike American broadcasting, Mr. Shapiro. The point I'm trying to make is that your words are hardly designed to produce the consensus and understanding that the book seems to want to produce. That's my point, that you write about, Judeo-Christian culture and so on, but so much of what you've said in the past would seem to turn its back on Judeo-Christian culture.
You're lecturing me on Judeo-Christian culture after you call the pro-life position barbaric?
I just asked you a question.
Remember, he didn't call the pro-life position barbaric. He was saying that other people are stating that someone getting 30 years for a miscarriage or 10 years for going outside the state to get an abortion is barbaric. There's kind of a difference. Wouldn't you say there's a difference?
And I asked you a question. You failed to answer a single one of mine. Frankly, I find this whole thing a waste of time. If you want to read the book and critique the book, why don't you read and critique the book? If you want to critique me, you can think whatever you want of me.
Why don't you
frankly,
just try and
I don't
answer
care.
the
I don't
questions?
frankly give a damn what you think of me since I've never heard of you.
And I've never heard of you until I briefed myself for this. But that's not the issue. You have a
Then
new
why the hell
book
are you
out,
interviewing
and
me, sir?
it's an interesting book. But my point is, your book claims that
Well, it'd be nice if you would quote it from time to time.
Your book is, well, actually, I've done so several times, and I'm about to do so again, if you would let me just finish the question.
You're quoting my book and using my words against me. That's not fair.
Your book
frankly, I don't
claims
think
that
this- you know what?
society
Honestly-
is turning
honestly,
its
sir,
back on Judeo-Christian values.
Yeah, this
What are
considering
those values?
considering
what are the values it's turning its back on?
I'm not inclined to continue an interview with a person as badly motivated as you as an interviewer. So I think we're done here. I appreciate your time, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for showing that anger is not part of American political discourse. Now, Mr. Shapiro, we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro got his ass handed to him, and that was the best possible kind of comment that Andrew Neil could have left at the end of the interview.